You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here on the Pace Radio Network, Facebook and YouTube pages, and podcasted afterwards at paceradio.net. Good evening, Tamara. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good, Al. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Today was a little bit of a cooler day than what I would have liked to have seen, but it's spring's coming slowly. Well, date-wise, it's here, right?
It did. It became spring yesterday or the day before. I posted it because there was a robin in my yard. So I actually took a picture of the robin and said, "First day of spring, I actually seen a robin." So that was great. We did have one sighting, and that's usually. But again, we always laugh about it because May long weekend's coming, and we always get snow in Western Canada on a May long weekend. Like it's a gift. So everybody goes camping. They end up with 5 inches of snow on their tents, and so is it really spring? We say to wait because until you get 10 consecutive days of 10-degree weather, you're uprooting and hurting the hibernation of the ladybugs and the dragonflies and the bees. So they've, that is another thing that's come out saying, wait, don't get too excited about raking up your leaves. Don't get excited about, digging up your gardens quite yet. I know it's nice and, you want to go out there and get active because it's been beautiful here. It's been sunny and beautiful here. And I love to be out in the garden too. And well, then until I walk through the deer shit.
The deer shit. Hey, I was telling somebody about the deer at your place, and I like when you told me about the deer going through your yard, I'm thinking, well, you live in town. And then you told me that you got like 1,000 deer around town. And I'm going, what?
It might not be that high. It might be like 300, but still we have the deer are almost outpopulating the population. It's not quite that small. But, to be fair, like there's more than when I grew up, when I was younger here, we didn't have deer in town. And I don't know what's pushed them in or what the reasoning as to why they're here, and they're born here. It's not like they're born out in the forest and then they're all moving in for food. They're not living in the forest. And we're quite close to the forest. Our community forest is like 16 blocks up, east of me. And you can be careful. You might not run into a bear there because that's how close we are to the forest. But these deer don't live there. They live here.
It sounds like the community has come into where the deer were normally, were, and they've just refused to give up their territory.
Well, that's what a lot of people will say, but like I said, when I grew up here as a kid, we didn't have them. They weren't roaming through as readily as they are here. It was odd to see one in town, and now it's odd not to see one in town. Like if I don't see, the young fawns that were born like late last year and they're super tiny, I kind of like, oh, I hope they're okay. But again, like I said, the mess of my yard, they've eaten my garden, they've eaten my bushes, they've eaten everything, and
lower leaves of the trees,
everything. And like I said, I love them, but they can be problematic, and that's a lot of people see it that way because they've hurt animals here too. They've scratched up vehicles, so I understand people not wanting them here either. To be fair.
Well, they have caused some issues, that's for sure.
Well, they want to cull
them.
That's my problem. They want to cull them, which means they trap them and kill them. And I mean, the food bank gets the meat, but it just seems it just seems not right.
It still doesn't seem, you're looking at protecting them, but
Well, like I said, when there was only 20 or so, and they were kind of cute. But when, like I said, when I go to dig out my garden and there's nothing left, it kind of ticks you off because you spent all summer, eating that garden, making it go to get some kale. There's no kale. right? You go to get some lettuce and they just rip the peas right out. Like there's not even a vine left. So last year I put everything into Rubbermaid containers on my red room, but
Mm-hmm.
carrots didn't grow as deep because it's just not ideal. So I want to try a garden this year again, but I want to put some plastic over it or something. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I
See
got some
how it
time.
goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Gardening's fun. Like I said, whether it's cannabis we're gardening or whether it's vegetables, it's all gardening, right? And that's
That,
with cannabis too. It's like because well, it can't be that. It's not that hard, but you also have to have a bit of a green thumb.
well, here you got a perfect example. You know, you've got the wildlife that are eating your crop.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. You couldn't have them out here. Here we just eat them. Again, we were talking about that too, about the fact you can't put them in your windows and stuff either, and you can't put them over. They can't be so many if a fence, and you can't see them, and if you do, that's illegal. And yeah, the
Right.
rules that go along with legalization.
Yeah. One other thing I want to touch on before we get into things is you've been involved in something local to you, helping to raise some money. I thought I'd give you the opportunity to let people know what you're up to.
I've been organizing a vigil with my friend Kim for the last 4 weeks. And we just kind of came up with it 4 weeks ago because we were so angry about everything. Like COVID's made us all kind of incompassionate and not really, tolerant and accepting. Like, I was finding myself really angry. And I thought, I got to change this. I got to change it into something positive. So what's going on in Ukraine is not positive, but it's in order to bring support to them, I thought we'd throw a candlelight vigil. So, because I did that when the mosques were shot up in Montreal too. So, I put on my Facebook page, anybody want to help me out? And Kim jumped in and we did our first vigil. So, this is going on our 5th week. We've decided to kick it up and have the Ukrainian ladies making borscht and pierogies. So we're going to be at Auntie Barb's Bakery, which is a local bakery here in town that's donated her space and her time and her equipment for us to go in and make a great big bowl, great big batch of borscht and probably about 50 to 100 dozen pierogies. And then we're going to have a soup sale. And all the money is going to go to the one family that's trying to get I think it's either her sister or her cousin and 2 young kids into Canada here right away. And again, I'm also working with another committee that's working on larger projects that want to bring more refugees in and set them up in housing and do that. But this is we work like in concert.
Yeah.
This is separate.
Yeah.
This is smaller donations. This is stuff for immediately now. The other organization is going to be doing housing, clothing, furniture, other bigger stuff, right? In the future here in the next couple of weeks. But
So you said today you were doing some press releases.
I did a media release and I did some media today and got an article in the newspaper and our local radio stations and that's, thanks to cannabis activism, which has really, really helped me learn and the podcast that I started with you and now the video where I can speak well. It's really, and it was cannabis that actually helped me with that. Having to stand in front of a crowd. I remember the first time I did TY. Or at a global marijuana march, and you're standing in front of a group of people, and it's unnerving.
Just so you know, JR says Tamara is doing an awesome job.
Thanks, JR. He's local. He lives here in Cranbrook. So I appreciate that. Yeah, he watches our show all the time. Yeah, he used to have a connection too all the time. So yeah, he's a local friend of mine, and I appreciate that. But we're just like I said, Kim and I are just doing what we really felt like we had to do. Right. So again, today I went and I actually got the parks booked legally. We were doing it without the park, little contract signed, which nobody really cared. But I went and I got that done today, and we've got a permit for temporary food service and everything lined up, and we've done everything right. And now we've got a commercial kitchen to work in, and Sunday we'll be selling pierogies and borscht.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We should let everybody know that Dana
is delayed.
Our guest has been delayed. When he appears, we will get him into the show. But we're just waiting on him to join us. So, shall we discuss what got us to invite him onto the program?
what was the reasoning? Yes. Well, Dana's
Yeah.
controversial at the best of times because he always pushes the envelope when it came to cannabis dispensaries. He's one of the first people to get, well, Ted Smith, to be fair, was the first person to get that done. And then, but Dana, opened a cannabis dispensary, and it was a Vancouver dispensary. And then he now is running cannabis or psilocybin dispensaries, and he runs a Coca Cafe, but he also runs Get Your Drugs Tested in Vancouver too, which is a non-for-profit where you can go in for free and get your drugs tested, because we all know that there's a huge addiction problem in every country across the world. It's not just here. And he
That's
invests.
something that you've worked on, and
Right.
I know I've worked on as well. So
Right. And he invested a lot of money into these machines so that they could actually test drugs in Vancouver on the downtown east side. So he also has that Get Your Drugs Tested as well. So why I put him out there as very involved in awareness for cannabis, and inclusively, been great for all ending the drug war for everything, to be fair, because it's a drug war on humanity, to be fair.
Yeah.
Even keeping, things the way they are with the poison drugs that are coming onto our streets now.
Yeah.
So So there they had an article because Dana's opened.
Yeah, I've got it here on the setup, and here we go. There we go. Magic Mushroom Dispensary are operating openly in Vancouver is what the headline says on it.
Right.
So, this is just March 16th.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it was just last week, and that's why
yeah.
I jumped on him, because we were talking about the article on were we doing Reefer Report last week, or what, or was it last week's show? I can't remember, but we were talking about it prior to the show, and I jumped in and said, well, let's see if we can get him quickly,
Yeah.
because that's time to, you want the iron to be hot, right?
Right.
So I got a hold of him, and we asked him to be on. So we're just waiting for him to pop his head in, but he's busy. So, and
He's
it's
a
also
busy lad.
Vancouver time, which is a
Yeah.
busy time, right? Vancouver time. So he'll be along shortly, I'm sure.
Yeah, I believe
But
so. I believe so.
yeah, but just like I said, the article basically, he's been running that dispensary isn't new.
No,
It's been
exactly.
quite a while, actually. I think it's been almost 2 or 3 years now, actually. And then he's also got the Coca Cafe, which is openly running there too, where they sell coca leaf and in raw form, and sell teas. And they also run like a legitimate sandwich shop. Like you can buy a sandwich and get a coca leaf tea there, right? So they really expanded, because when legalization happened with cannabis, because of being an activist, it's not easy to get a cannabis license for distribution for even a
Yeah,
store,
exactly.
right? If you've been
Yeah.
involved in the industry in any way, shape, or form, and a lot of them did. A lot of them were able to get licensing to open legal stores. I don't think that.
But not everybody has.
I think Dana tried. To be fair, I think they actually tried, and I think they went to court a few times, fighting with the city of Vancouver about the regulations and the legality of their stores, because they were already there and expected that they should have been just grandfathered in, which they should have been.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he says here in this article, he says we kind of operate in this gray area and hope to change that gray area to lighter and lighter shades of gray. And hopefully the next few years we see change in the laws around the psilocybin mushrooms. So, that's what we did with the cannabis end of things.
Well, exactly. And they're proving that psilocybin does help for anxiety, and it does help for pain too, apparently. And like I said, I can't comment or speak on these things.
Yeah.
I've got no personal experience with it, right?
Right.
So I can't say yay or nay or whatever. I've got no personal experience with it, so I can't say for sure. But there are documents.
There's people who are talking about its benefits, and
right. And I know many people that they find great benefit for it with it. So like I said, I can't comment either way myself personally, because I don't have any experience, right?
Yeah. Well, it says here that psilocybin's only been illegal in Canada since 1975. Like, really, I know myself, I was around at that time.
Me too. I was.
So
I was only 5 years old, so I don't remember. Oh, and there he is.
There he is. Okay, there he is. We'll just take the share screen off, and we'll welcome We will welcome Dana Larsen to the broadcast. Hello, Dana. How you
Well,
doing?
we've almost sent my apologies for being late here. I really feel bad about this. I was just doing another interview with someone else and I got carried away. I looked at the clock. Oh my God, we've been talking for 2 hours. I'm late for this thing. I'm at the cafe working today, so I'm just in my back office here, but things are good. Actually, let me just close this door.
Okay, go ahead.
See, I knew there was a reason that he was delayed.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I'm glad. I just said, oh my God, I'm 15 minutes late. I run in there. So we're good. I'm here now. Hopefully you've been able to just keep the small talk going and do what you got to do before I get here. But
we did. We did the small talk. We told everybody that you were just delayed. You'd be along shortly, and then we're just reviewing the article that CBC had on your mushroom dispensary last week.
that was a good story. I was very happy with that, and it's definitely drawn a lot of attention. We got a lot. We were busy before, but we're really busy now. And it's funny when they do these things because there's other mushroom dispensaries in Vancouver as well, and they talk to the police, they talk to the other dispensaries, they talk to the city, and I'm the only one who would go on camera. No one from the city will go on camera. None of the cops want to go on camera. Definitely none of one of the other dispensary people want to go on camera. So I'm the only one, which I like that role. I'm happy to be on camera. I feel comfortable there. But it's interesting that they can't. No one wants to talk to the media about this except for me.
Because they don't want to bring attention to themselves, right? But that doesn't bring any awareness. And you want to bring awareness to the public about, the benefits of what psilocybin can do too, and that you're there and it's available for patients that want to use it, right? And that's what we're supposed to do, bring awareness. So
I think that being public is a form of protection too. I think that if people know that you're there, you draw attention to that, then they get upset when something bad happens to you, and you're able to create that kind of community. But each to their own. I don't necessarily think everybody has to go on camera all the time. I like having that role, but it is interesting how that plays out. That they got the TheraSil guys, but they're working within the system, right? So they came on, and they're doing great work in Victoria also with the terminally ill patients, right? But
right here.
Yeah, it's been good. That story was really good, and I expect there's going to be more discussion around this kind of stuff in the mainstream media.
Has that story brought you any unwanted attention?
I mean, not really. We're pretty good. We're going to have some issues with the city at some point, I think. But we do have a business license, right? We carefully.
Phone's ringing.
Okay, sorry, getting rid of that. We opened as a cafe and kind of got our business license, and then we added the mushrooms afterwards. So we kind of approached it in that certain way. Sorry, I'm getting calls here while I'm doing stuff.
Sounds like the lounges in Toronto.
Yeah.
Toronto, some of them set up as like with a restaurant.
Like with the city stuff, we're not going to have the cops coming and raid us or anything like that, right? Luckily in Vancouver, that is a very, very unlikely situation. I wouldn't say never, you never know, not 100%, but I'd say it's pretty unlikely, right? But what I think is likely is them saying, well, you don't have a license to sell mushrooms, that's not allowed, or that some bureaucratic type stuff, we're going to fine you or whatever, then you go to court. But that kind of stuff can take a long time to play out, right? And certainly we'd be in no hurry either. So, I think we got a couple of years here at least, and then we see how things go after that. But within a year, there's going to be 50 places in the city also, right? There's, I think, 4 or 5 now. And you get the first few, testing the waters. People are like, oh, they're okay. It's been a while. I could do this too. And I think we're going to
not causing any disturbance within the communities where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's kind of like with cannabis. It started with, one seed, and then it just kind of bloomed into, and again, it's the same with here. We've got 8-10 legal stores in town, Dana. And you know where I am, right? Cranbrook. 10 stores. And the 2 that were, illegal in the gray market up in Kimberley are now legal stores too, right? Fernie's got I don't know, half a dozen. You can throw a stone from my house and hit them. That's what I mean. They just popped up like crazy, right? Once legalization.
Well,
yeah. I mean, I'm not disputing that it's not good. I wish that they would have allowed that to be happening before we had to have the regulations, right?
Yeah, it's and yeah, there's a lot of back and forth. I was just talking to somebody else doing an interview talking about some of these things, and I mean, to me, the greatest part of cannabis legalization is that 60,000 Canadians aren't being arrested each year for marijuana
That's right.
possession. The
That's
number's
right.
still bigger than zero, and it should be zero. There still are some arrests, but it's dropped,
It's
99%,
dropped.
right? And that's great. The challenges with legalization are more about how many plants you're allowed to grow, who's allowed to sell it, how it's taxed, that it's still very expensive, that there's limits on potency. Those kind of stigmas and aspects are still part of it.
Well, you know what? This is my famous last words when everybody's, bitching about extra taxes and stuff. And they're going to raise our taxes with all this CRP here, and they're going to raise our taxes with this dental and this pharmacare. And I said, no, they're not. You can thank marijuana. And I just throw it right at people because of the taxation, whether we like it or not. But that was the end result and goal, pretty much, to be able to put that money back into the province and back into the general coffers to whatever they needed it for. If it's going to bring pharmacare to Canada, if it's going to bring healthcare and dental care to Canada, if it helped pay for CRB for all these people and they're not getting, having to pay it all back, and then our income tax isn't being raised,
Yeah,
right?
to me, like legalization is like it creates a new like ground floor that we can then work from, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, we're allowed to grow 4 plants per household. Now, that's a ridiculously low number. It should be much bigger. But getting from 0 plants to 4 plants is an immense accomplishment, and it's never going to be less than 4 plants. They're not going to make it 3 at some point. I know a few provinces are trying to stop any plants, but ultimately that number is only going to get bigger over time. Probably not big enough and fast enough for our preference, but it creates a new basis. And the same with all these other penalties that are there, right?
Preference. Like nothing moved fast enough.
Yeah, it's obviously we want it to be better, but I think we can sometimes get hung up that we didn't get what we wanted, and it sucks, and legalization is bad. And I mean, there are flaws, and we do have to approach it, but it's also a huge victory for us. In any other movement, we didn't go from homosexuality being criminalized to like gay marriage in one jump. It took a lot of steps, a lot of intermediate points, this and that. And same with any other, racial equality. We didn't like end slavery and immediately go to, and we're still dealing with these things. We still have these issues going on. And it takes a long time, right? So, but it's going to happen in steps. And I think taking a victory lap, that legalization was a very big step, hugely important, and really, Canada at the federal level, we have the best, most tolerant marijuana laws in the world. Some American states have it better at the state level, but there's no country with more open cannabis laws than Canada right now, and so that's pretty good. And hopefully, other countries will pass better ones, and then we can improve our laws. And but it's important to recognize that what we have accomplished.
Our rallies, all that we've held over the years, there's no reason to stop them because there's always needs to improve the system.
No, I agree. And when we had, in 420 obviously got paused for other reasons than that. But the first big one we did after legalization, people were like, "Well, it's legal now. Don't you want to stop?" And I was like, "Well, like when we legalize gay marriage, does that mean the Pride Parade stops?" Like, no, that's ridiculous. In fact,
it's celebration.
If it was legal, there'd be more cannabis events and more things going on, not less. And certainly, there's a lot to complain about, a lot to protest, and a lot to celebrate. And 420, our cannabis community should be able to do all those things. But this idea that it's legal now, so shut up and go home, and like, no, that's not how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be it's legal now, so here's a permit, and maybe here's a grant to help you put on your event because we support your community or whatever, right? That's really what the spirit of legalization should be.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm really happy to see too that things are moving forward with harm reduction in Vancouver with the safe drug supplies and stuff. We were talking about getting your drugs tested too before you joined us, and how much respect I have for you for doing that because of my daughter as well. I've got a daughter that's has addiction problems, but the fentanyl and everything that's going around. But these moms stop the harm, and the fact that these people go out and actually buy off the black market, and not black market, but the black web, and get them some decent, that's something that's huge in Vancouver. So, I know you do a lot of testing, right?
I'm very proud of our Get Your Drugs Tested program, right? We've just hit our 25,000 drug that we've analyzed.
Wow, nice.
They're in a searchable database, so you can look at all the, any kind of, all the cocaine that did have fentanyl, all the cocaine that had this thing and all the heroin that whatever. You can really break it down and get quite interesting results. And I think it's a really useful service and one that I wish was being offered more by provincial governments and by the health authorities. We just have two of these machines. It's called an FTIR machine, and it's basically shines an infrared laser at a very small sample of the drug, and then it analyzes the light spectrum that comes out and compares that to a massive database of substances, and it can tell what's in there. For fentanyl, sometimes the amount can be so low but still active that we will also use test strips to detect fentanyl if it doesn't show up, just to be sure we didn't miss any, because it can be in very low quantities. But sometimes it's about finding fentanyl and preventing a death. Other times it's just about preventing a bad drug experience. Someone who's expecting to buy MDMA and they get MDA instead. Well, they're kind of similar, but they're also really different in a lot of ways, and you don't really want to substitute one for the other. Or you get weird stuff. Like one time someone brought in what they thought was MDMA. It was actually methamphetamine mixed with Viagra. So you get, MDMA actually has kind of a rushing, energizing effect to it, but it's also got a very emotional kind of heart chakra opening, connectedness kind of thing, which can be sexual, but is more sort of, it's not, but they're trying to meet that with, well, you get some energy from the meth and you get some horniness from this Viagra, and that's kind of our street combination, right? And it may not, they're going to kill you, but it's not what you're looking for, right? So knowing what you're getting, sometimes it's about getting a death. Sometimes, knowing somebody's making their own weird combinations of things to try to sell, right? And sometimes you just find out, okay, it is what I expected. Now I can, when I'm taken, I can feel confident, not start having panic attacks halfway through. Was it what I thought it was? Oh shit, maybe I got something else, And so there's a lot of those factors. And we get people we don't ask people if they're a dealer or not. We get people coming in who I'm pretty sure are dealers. They're bringing in 10 samples to test that are all marked, cataloged. And dealers don't always know what they're selling either. They're buying from one person, they're breaking it down, they're selling it to someone else. Most dealers, I think, want to provide quality products to their customers, at a good price. It's a business, and sometimes people have different motivations, but a lot of drug dealers and cannabis sellers and merchants of whatever, they enjoy these things. They think they should be available, and they want to offer good stuff, but they don't have the ability to test it themselves. So them coming down, it creates accountability in the drug chain that wasn't there before. Not everyone can go back to their dealer and go, hey, this wasn't what you said it was, but some of them can.
Yeah.
You can definitely not go back to that guy again. If you're trying to get MDMA and he's selling you the meth and Viagra super combination pack, you're not going to go to that guy anymore, right? And maybe he doesn't even know what he's selling. And now he finds out, shit, I didn't know I had that. So it creates a level of accountability in the drug chain that wasn't there before, which I think is very important across the board. And we had one guy come in one time, and I'm not sure what, he had tested positive for fentanyl. I forget what it was now, but he was convinced that was a murder attempt and that his dealer was trying to kill him. And if you had altered someone's drug supply, you can murder them pretty easily, because if someone dies from fentanyl, just another overdose. No one's going to investigate that or try to figure out where another poison drug supply. Right. I'm not saying that happens all the time, but I'm pretty confident that of the many thousands of people that have died, some small percentage were intentional, and we'll never know. And it's another aspect where drug users are really made to be very vulnerable by prohibition. So we can help, catch those kind of things as well. So it's a lot of benefits to that. And just so people know, you can mail in samples as well, really from anywhere in the world. I don't really like encouraging people in other countries. I don't want them to get in trouble in their own country. But if you can drop an anonymous sample off in the mail at no risk to yourself, when it arrives to us, as long as there's an email address with it, we will analyze it and send the results to that email address, regardless of what the stamp is on the parcel. So, they pretty much all come from within Canada, but we do get the odd sample from outside of the country, and we just need a tiny little bit to analyze, right? So it's really something I'm quite pleased with and happy that it's worked out that we're able to offer this service. We just bought a truck, actually, so we're going to have a mobile testing lab set up.
Oh, that's great.
I'm really excited about this. We bought it just late last year. We're getting it decked up and wrapped, and we got to get all the electronics hooked up and make it all working. But we want to go to music festivals this summer. For the first time in a while, we'll have music festivals. Hopefully, that's going to hold. And also just to other parts of the province. I'd love to take it on tour, even around BC or around Canada, and go to different towns and set up for a day. Now we're in Cranbrook, and we're going to offer drug testing in
Cranbrook
Campbellford.
actually has a machine here. Shambhala actually donated Anchors, a machine here. So they've got a machine here. So we do have Anchors here that does do drug testing.
I think it's available in some other communities as well. Yeah. But as far as I know, we're the only place offering it 7 days a week, 8 hours a day.
Probably. Yeah, I'm not sure what their hours
are. Anchors started for Shambhala, and they offer quite a bit. And that's also not really a government thing either. Shambhala paid for those machines, right?
Yeah, they did. Anchors is all like donations by and grants and stuff.
Maybe we don't do it at Cranbrook or whatever. I don't know. But I like the idea of going to places, and when we leave, they go, "Why isn't that here? Why isn't that part of our community? Why doesn't the province fund this?" It's for us, it's a lot of money. Spending $500,000 or whatever on this, that's a huge investment, right? But for the health authorities, that's a tiny fraction of a drop of what they've got available. And it's frustrating to me that they talk about safe supply. Well, this isn't guaranteed, but this is definitely an easy and immediate way to make the drug supply immensely safer.
Yeah.
It's not really perfectly safe, and there's definitely caveats around the testing that it's not always a total guarantee, but it is immeasurably safer when it's been tested. And so I don't know why they don't, just for $1 million or $2 million, they could do it all across the province. And
so many,
2/3, about 3/4 of all the tests in BC, we're doing with our 2 machines in our 1 location. Right. The province has 16 machines and a much bigger budget, and they're not testing much at all. And then also, Shambhala and Anchors is really carrying the load there as well in that area, in Nelson, Cranbrook kind of area, doing that testing. So.
Anchors, like I said, Anchors has been. We've got quite a problem out here too. We've got the travel lodge full of like BC housing because we don't have a homeless shelter here. And I know Anchors does a lot of work. If you want Narcan, and you can go in and get it free from them, they do a lot of work here because we've got a really bad problem here right now. They've got something running. We actually just had a drug alert from Interior Health because the overdoses that we've been having is something different than fentanyl altogether, and it makes them even more drowsy. It's more of an anesthesia. I can't remember the name. It starts with an F, I think, FZ something. Anyway, I can't remember, but it's really bad here.
Advocacy is showing up sometimes. So like Atizalam, we see that a lot now, and other sort of benzos. So you're seeking a pain reliever, and the benzos are going to have that property, but often they're combined with fentanyl, and Atizalam and fentanyl together is not a good combination. And the Narcan doesn't really work on the benzos, so it's harder to recover from the overdose. That's one thing that
they're really finding. Like they're having to hit people like 3 and 4 times, and it's still not helping.
No.
So
we don't really know exactly what they're taking and how it's all a lot of it's an emerging stuff, right? But it's very tragic, and unfortunately, it takes a lot of pain and misery and death to get people to care enough to make some changes to these ridiculous laws. And I kind of compare it to the AIDS crisis in many ways, and that also, it galvanized people. And when your friends and loved ones are dying, you become an activist, and you become angry, and you have less to lose. And you're like a Mom Stop the Harm, right? That group of parents who have lost their children. Like they are, because of that, they didn't plan on becoming drug policy activists or whatever, but they're thrust into it. And that, it's very powerful. It's just really tragic that it takes.
It was tragic that we lost that case.
Like misery and death.
Like we lost that court case got thrown out, which was ridiculous. I'm not sure where they're heading right at the moment with whether they're going to go try and do something else. But that court case was thrown out. So
I've got to jump in here. Got to take a break.
Oh, okay.
All right. All right. Tamara and I'll be right back after a break to continue our discussion with Dana Larsen. This is the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at paceradio.net.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Growing your own cannabis is easier than you think. Whether you're growing for recreational or medical purposes, BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. From the standard 4-plant recreational systems to the latest cutting-edge hydroponic equipment, BMA can customize your package and do it at discount prices. Visit BMA Hydroponics at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville and ask us for a free estimate. Or call 613-967-9888 and we will give you an estimate over the phone.
The only way to go.
In February of 2022, the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club and Ted Smith were fined $6.5 million This for helping 8,500 patients with access to medical cannabis. In our interview with Ted, he spoke to us about how people can donate to help in an upcoming court challenge. And here is part of that interview. From what I've seen lately, I believe that you've got something that you're trying to do as far as fundraising to deal with this next court challenge.
For now, people can write checks directly to Jack Lloyd Law Corporation or send e-transfers to save the VCBC at gmail.com. I guess those are the two easiest ways for people to help right now.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
A doctor's job is to relieve your pains. And when it comes to growing cannabis, the biggest pain is trimming. Let Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions take the pain away. Whether you're a home grower or a commercial operation, we have the cure. From 4 plants to 400 plants, garden size doesn't matter. Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions comes to you with years of experience and professional discreet service. It's simple. We trim your weed and we do a damn good job. Visit drbuckcts.com to book your trimming.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Hey, welcome back. We are the Pace Radio Show, and we're being broadcasted live on our YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook pages, and we're podcasted afterwards at paceradio.net. As you can see, Tamara joins me, and our guest, Dana Larsen, is here with us as well. Before the break, Dana and Tamara, we're talking about getting your drugs tested. One thing that we didn't touch on, is there a website or an email address? How do people get to get this started?
Getyourdrugstested.com. And all the information is there. Our whole database of all of our 25,000 tests are there. The information to get you, send in a sample, and our address, we're at 880 East Hastings Street in Vancouver. But if you want to mail in a sample, just send us an email through the website, and we can give you the mailing address to send samples into. But we're open at our storefront 7 days a week from noon till 8 p.m. That's at 880 East Hastings in Vancouver.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, because it's really, like I said, it's super important with, this day and age. Like, that's one thing with the regulations with cannabis. Like, I mean, I know there's still a lot of gray market, working, which is still, I think, pretty safe. But with the, with the regulation of cannabis, at least when you're going into one of those stores, what's coming out has been tested and, packaged and, pretty well has to be. There's nothing else in there, right? You're not going to get laced. But I never really fell for the fentanyl laced cannabis anyways. I never ever thought that anybody would be.
Well, you got to think, how long was cannabis illegal before it became legal? And during that time, while it was illegal and people were getting off the black market, how many people were rushed to the hospital because of something that was bad?
Not very often.
The issues around cannabis maybe are like pesticide residue or mold or something like that. And those can be issues, but they're not going to kill you like instantly, right? It might be not the healthiest thing if there's contamination in there in some way.
No, I agree.
I'm not sure the legal market's totally eliminated all of that.
I agree.
The legal market is
lacing it with cocaine. Cocaine costs a lot of money. Nobody's going to put a $3,000 ounce of, cocaine into a $200 ounce of pot. Like, it's just not happening.
No.
Like,
People might, you might sprinkle some cocaine into a joint for your own personal use,
Right?
perhaps, or something like that. But that's like, you're not going to give it to the people. And certainly fentanyl and marijuana do not go together. They're
No.
not typically taken together. In fact, most heroin users I know don't like smoking pot. They think pot's too strong because marijuana has a mental effect that can be, especially if you're not a regular user, it's quite a strong mental effect. Heroin is a much more physical, calming kind of thing. And just because you like, they go, well, if you like heroin, weed must be nothing to you. And it's like, no, they're totally different things. And in some ways, marijuana is stronger than heroin. Like in terms of how it affects your mind and your thoughts, I think cannabis is stronger than. Obviously, heroin has other effects that are stronger in its way than cannabis is. But in some ways, like, what's stronger? Mushrooms or, mushrooms are. It's not going to kill you how many mushrooms you take, but it's a very intense experience.
It's
As much
different.
stronger
It's
than
just
cocaine.
yeah. It's
I kind of think they are, even though there's different. They're not really comparable because they're all
no,
different kind of categories, right? But
right. It's like comparing alcohol to cannabis. Like it's not the same. It's all drugs, but it's not the same. And I don't consider, I hate that drugs because everything has always been derogatory out of something leaf wise, right? Even heroin's leaf.
well, the word drugs, we normally apply it to like banned drugs. So we don't think of coffee as a drug or caffeine as a drug, but there's a parallel world of people where coffee got banned and coca tea is allowed. People don't think of coca tea or cocaine as a drug, but caffeine and coffee, that stuff. They sold that to kids before, and who could believe that? Now it's banned, right?
Right.
It easily happened. I mean, there was times in history where coffee came very close to being banned, and times where coffee was banned, and times when coca tea was legal and cocaine was legal, and so a lot of this is very arbitrary how we decide what is allowed and what isn't. And
I keep wondering,
with
who makes these
and not
rules?
with substances.
Like, why? How do we get here? Like, how do I mean, even with prohibition of cannabis, like, really, like, how did they get there? Like, was there like a great big outbreak of like lots of crime, and it was all related to somebody getting busted for a bunch of weed? Like, you know what I mean? You have to think about like who came up with these arbitrary laws to begin with about these substances and why, right? Even with cocaine, like what was the catalyst? What was the red line for that? You know what I mean?
It all happened around the same time too. Historically, it's a pretty narrow period, right? These substances, I mean, were widely used. There was occasional local prohibitions on things here and there, but those were normally, again, a cultural kind of situation. People are drinking coffees and getting ideas about getting rid of the monarchy. Let's ban coffee in coffee shops, right? But the real sort of the modern war on drugs really was the late 1800s, early 1900s, and there's a lot of diversity and different groups coming together for the first time. A lot of racism, a lot of the remnants of slavery and Jim Crow laws were still in place, and I think that the prohibition of these these substances gave people authorities a way of targeting certain groups without having to name those groups, right? And we're not going after black people, we're going after cocaine users. Now they all happen to be black, but that's just a coincidence or whatever, right? And so it became a method of control. And then as new substances came along, like LSD or MDMA became popular decades later, we got a framework. We just make a new slot and put them in here, right? Without any analysis or caring about the substances themselves or really believing that they're really dangerous. It was more just about fitting things into the slot. We don't like the groups that are taking this stuff. These LSD users seem to be a lot of hippies and peace protesters. So, we can't arrest people for being anti-war, but we can arrest them for taking LSD.
Right.
That's how and there's also so much cultural inertia now in terms of so many people make a living and have a salary that depends on prohibition existing. It makes it very difficult to get rid of. Every social battle's got its challenges, but I think the number of people that make a living off of cannabis and drug prohibition and drug war, the police and the prisons and the border guards and the prison guards and the pharmaceutical companies, and there's a lot of money in this.
Psychologists,
makes it harder to get rid of it in society. I think harder to make that change. But
well, like you're right about that. It's a great big wheel of social services, right? And if we live in a social democracy, which we do, they need sick people to keep a hospital open. They need sick people to have doctors and nurses, and we have to have criminals to have police, and we have, you know what I mean. So society kind of keeps it all, balanced by having the good and the difference of diversity because of that, and why there's still problems in our society because of health and crime, and it all works out of the government, one cog of trying to keep control, right? And I mean, to be fair, if we could be lawless and we could police ourselves, I'd far see rather that. But we've proven as a society we do not know how to police ourselves. You know what I mean? Like we cannot all get along. There's always somebody that wants more than somebody else. So we've proven that we can't police ourselves.
Well, I mean, we do by creating a society, and by this is the way we are all sort of coming together and to do these things. But I mean, I'm not a, I think a society with a government will be better than without a government, and that's how what we've seen, right? I mean, societies that are organized into groups and have taxes and bureaucracies and controls, they spread and are more adaptive, and will their ideas will spread more than those who don't do those kind of things. But the drug war is a remnant of an earlier time, and we definitely in society there is always racism and sexism and this and that, but our governments usually oppose those things, right? Most governments, certainly in Canada, they all give lip service to we support LGBTQ rights, we support racial equality, but drug users, no, they belong in jail. Those
right?
Drug users are all evil. And they used to say that of a lot of other groups. Well, black people are inherently criminogenic and gay people are inherently whatever. And now they don't. But
look at us too. Like look at all the stigma that on people that use cannabis.
It's demonized by the government in Western democracies, which is and because there's so much money and history behind it, it's really hard to make that change. But it is coming, and it seems slow to us. But in historical terms, I think we are seeing pretty rapid change happening in a lot of ways.
Well, I can't believe how quickly some of the states are actually turning over cannabis, right? And that's moved quickly, like almost as quickly as we did, like state to state years, right?
Yeah, more states are legalizing psilocybin, the mushroom end of things.
Yeah, that too.
Before you jumped in, Dana, we had been reading about it said in the CBC article that psilocybin became legal in Canada in 1975. Well, I was 15 years of age at that time. I can't remember any nastiness going on that created them to make psilocybin illegal.
If you really think about our drug laws, they're very bizarre because, people are enjoying psilocybin, let's ban it, because people are liking it. But it's not against the law for me to go and buy rat poison and drink a bottle of rat poison. It's got a label on it saying don't drink this, but there's not a crime. I can go drink turpentine or inject turpentine. It's not recommended, but it's not a crime. No one's going to arrest me for choosing to put that. But if I choose to use, I want to take a mushroom and eat that, that's a crime. But if I want to eat a poisonous mushroom, that's not a crime, right? I can go pick a poisonous mushroom and eat that. That's not against the law. Eating the one that's not poisonous, but that I'm going to enjoy, that's a crime. And so when you start to think about it, it's not about banning dangerous things, because there's all kinds of things you can eat and consume and smoke that would kill you instantly, and they're all legal. And they shouldn't be banned either. I mean, if I want to drink a can of red paint, I should be allowed to do that. I don't think they should recommend it or advertise it, but I mean, it should be allowed, right? And so with drugs, it's very bizarre that it's really about this thing has become popular. People are enjoying doing it. Often young people are liking this. We got to stop that. We don't want them enjoying themselves or something. That's not, it's a very bizarre kind of a perspective of how these laws come into play.
Yeah,
exactly, right.
Exactly.
I agree. Because I've always wondered, was there people was it Jim Jones? Did all of a sudden 300 people drop dead because the mushrooms in 1975? What was the you know what I mean? Because again, you can
people started learning that they existed. It was becoming popular. Yeah. We've seen with LSD, right? When people learned it existed, it was becoming popular. MDMA also, it was being used as relationship therapy and couples therapy. People started liking it. Oh, this is kind of fun, actually. Or I feel kind of good, and then it goes into the mainstream, where people start making it outside of the system, and then we gotta, instead of there's an opportunity. Yeah, let's let people enjoy themselves. Maybe they'll use MDMA instead of alcohol and have better lives, right? But
wasn't LSD originally brought it was being tested in the armies, and they were testing LSD and stuff, like Timothy Leary within the military, isn't that how LSD kind of got going?
LSD was accidentally discovered by Albert Hoffman in Switzerland. He was working on some other stuff. He spilled some LSD on himself, got high, eventually realized what this was. They started researching it, and actually the CIA started looking at it. They were looking, whether it's a good idea or not, of creating like non-lethal ways incapacitating the enemy. Instead of shooting everybody, what if you fly a plane over and spray the enemy with LSD? Then while they're all too high to do anything, we go in there and take over with our gas mask. So they were doing a lot of experiments on, and knowing you've been dosed is different than not knowing. If you know you've been given something, your reaction is different than if things just start getting weird for no reason. So they'd get soldiers and do things to them without telling them what was going on to measure their reaction to that, which is kind of unethical. And there was also an effort in the CIA where they would get a brothel and they would get people to come to the brothel and watch them from behind reflective glass, like one-way glass, and they would dose them with acid in the brothel and watch what kind of reactions they had. And one of the things they would do is go to university students in California and pay them and give them LSD and monitor their heart rate and ask them questions. And one of the guys they went to was a guy named Ken Kesey. And he was a student, and he liked the LSD, and he would use his heartbeat to make sure he always was able to give the right, like when they asked him to count to a certain number, he would use his heartbeat to make sure he was always accurate. So, but he really liked taking the LSD, and so they broke into it and started stealing it and giving it to people, and they started learning how to make it, and that kind of launched. It was the CIA studying LSD as a potential, like a non-lethal weapon, and that people started liking it, and then it started getting popular, and then it started giving them some funny ideas about peace and love and happiness.
So let's get rid of that stuff.
We got to ban this stuff, put these people in jail for taking it. Was the CIA studying this that really brought those things to mainstream?
We better get rid of this stuff, because that's probably, somebody was probably questioning, their gods or, some religious portion of it too.
Funny ideas. We can't allow that, right? We got to
can't allow that. Now we've got a comment here from J.R. Rowley. I don't know if you've got an answer on this. It's not a question or anything. You might want to comment to it. That's about it. He says, look how bad angel dust was back in the late 70s when coke was $225 a gram, and angel dust was killing people at $25 a gram.
Angel dust is PCP, if I understand correctly, right? That's the same.
Yeah, that's what I agree.
And it's just, the whole drug market is driven not by what consumers want, but by what is easiest to smuggle and easiest to produce, right? And so that's why we went from opium tea and opium smoking to morphine to heroin to fentanyl and now to carfentanil. It's why during alcohol prohibition, beer and wine vanished, and pure alcohol and toxic alcohol made with shitty ingredients was what proliferated. Prohibition, the iron law of prohibition, drugs always get stronger and more dangerous, right? And so, and so things that are cheaper and more available, it's not that angel dust or PCP is intrinsically cheaper to make. It was just easier to smuggle and easier to make that made the price become lower, right? And so, I think everything should be like legal, and that nothing should be criminal to put into your body, but that our laws should be aimed at encouraging people to use the milder forms and safer forms where they naturally will tend to go anyways. Like even with cannabis, post legalization, people aren't like eating the strongest edibles they can to hallucinate and trip out the most they can. In fact, CBD is the biggest area of growth in cannabis post legalization. And although there's definitely demand for high potency products, a lot of people prefer milder stuff and lower potency and CBD based stuff. With psychedelics, as psychedelics are becoming more popular, certainly some folks like taking psychedelic dosages, but the biggest area of growth is microdosing. The non-psychoactive or minimally psychoactive, or using a little bit that you can feel it a bit so you feel good, but tripping out and crying and having epiphanies, that's got its place when people don't keep that out.
Right, like that's the thing we've gotten that with this focusing on the recreational. They've left the medicinal side, even of cannabis, go, and you're right. Like people are looking for suppositories. Al, didn't you post something with those suppositories that you had?
Yes, yeah. Actually, I was able to purchase some legal suppositories from a cannabis
store.
The legal store.
That's one of the most underrated aspects of cannabis too.
How can you label suppositories as like recreational? I don't know. I don't know if anybody uses suppositories recreational.
In fact, we sell cannabis creams also, right? I've got a NJ cream. We sell cannabis creams and stuff. And they used to be available in any like in a regular corner store. There's no. I understand. Okay, something that's going to get you really high. I prefer more open regulations, but I understand why people want something that's going to have a psychological or psychoactive effect to be more restricted. But for a suppository or a cream or these kind of things, treating it all the same because they're too lazy to figure out a proper regulatory scheme.
Right? Like,
but creams and things are immensely useful, and suppositories also are the most. The only problem with suppositories is it's hard to keep them lit. That's my little tip there. Hard to keep it lit, but I'm trying to make a little fun there.
I was driving home with them, and I realized that they were sitting on the seat beside me, and I thought, geez, if I get pulled over, I'm going to get busted for having access to cannabis in the driver. Would I get fined for having suppositories in the seat beside me?
Well, that would be that'd be. I mean, that'd be bad, but also kind of hilarious. But they just came out that in Ontario, the police, because if they suspect that you've got cannabis in an open container, they're allowed to search your whole vehicle. So it's a way of getting around any kind of search warrant requirement. Mm-hmm. And it's been shown in Ontario that the police have been using this against brown people and against minorities. And whenever they want to search somebody, I bet you've got a joint in your pocket. And all they have to do is say that, and they're allowed to search you. And that's obviously way too much, right? I mean, I don't believe cannabis is very impairing for drivers. I don't mind a rule saying you can't smoke pot while you're driving. I mean, I'm not even sure we need that rule, but okay, I can accept that rule. But a rule saying you can't have an unlit joint next to you doesn't make any sense. And I know for me personally, if I smoked a tobacco cigarette while I was driving, I would crash into a tree because tobacco makes me cough, makes my eyes water, my head, I get a head rush, I feel uncomfortable. I can smoke joints and drive and I'm fine. But but I don't mind that kind of rule. But no, you can't have a bud or a suppository on the seat next to you. That is obviously an insane kind of a law.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I know, like I was actually, I was talking to my friend the other day that I was at the store and I was parked, a cop was parked right behind me, right? Like an RCMP, and I'd gone into the store and he was sitting there when he watched me walk into the store, and he watched me walk out of the store, and I normally just throw the bag on the passenger seat of the car and drive away. Like I don't even think about it. This time I thought, I opened the back, threw it in the back, the back compartment, closed the door, jumped in my car and drove away. And as I was driving away, I didn't have that paranoid feeling, like, oh my God, that was a cop. And it was so, like, I hate to say this about legalization, but that's one thing I like about the fact that I don't have that paranoid feeling now every time I see a cop.
Yeah.
Like,
people
because
paranoid, and sometimes it does, but I think a lot of times it's because you're feeling high, and suddenly you're like, shit, I'm gonna get caught that I'm high. Someone's gonna notice that I'm high. You start feeling paranoid because you kind of have justification to feel paranoid because you're breaking the law and you don't want to get in trouble, right? So.
Right.
Yeah, for years I
feel paranoid. I thought I'm doing the right thing. I put it in the back. I'm putting, got my seatbelt on. I'm not impaired. Like, well, I wasn't. I was supposed to do it before I left. But
the cannabis didn't make you paranoid. It was the law that made you paranoid.
Prohibition makes you paranoid, and justifiably paranoid because, like, they are out to get you. So it makes sense to feel that way.
Right. But it kind of felt good to be able to drive away and know that I wasn't doing anything wrong. I had an ounce of weed in the back, and I don't have a medical license right now. Before I wouldn't have cared. I had a medical license anyway, so I wouldn't care.
Although legalization's got a lot of good things, unfortunately, some of these loopholes are still being used the way the cannabis laws are being used to target people that the police want to target without a warrant. It used to be, we think you have a joint on you. Now it's like, we think you have a joint in your pocket while you're driving or whatever. It's the way it's come out to play. There's still a lot of opportunity for the police and the authorities to use these laws selectively. So maybe one person doesn't get in trouble for having something next to him in the seat, but the other person does because that other person belongs to a category or just has a cop that's having a bad day or whatever, but they fall into the unlucky category or the targeted group. And so that kind of arbitrary enforcement has always been a hallmark of the war on drugs and prohibition and cannabis laws, is that everybody does it, but only certain people get caught and get punished for it and get targeted for it. And there's a real reason why certain people do it and people don't.
I think it's changed because I think cannabis is really like something that even like the stigma is still there to a point. But now it seems like the war on drugs is war on the addiction, war on the addicted, war on the homeless, war on people that are vulnerable. Let's kick them when they're down. And that's where I really, I have a problem with that because people with addiction that are on the streets didn't ask to be there. Right? They don't ask to, have to worry about what the drugs
sometimes the drug addiction issue or a drug dependency can lead someone to street homelessness because these things are so expensive and because of the stigma and the cost involved. But other times it works the other way. If you become homeless for other reasons, it often becomes like being homeless is a very painful situation to be in. You're sleeping rough. You're not getting a lot of sleep. You've got muscle pain. You're not eating properly. If someone offers you something that can relieve that pain and make you feel better, it's a rational and logical choice to take that substance. If you're in a situation where you might get raped or robbed if you fall asleep at the wrong time, taking a stimulant to stay up at night so that you're able to keep yourself safe, that's a logical and rational thing to do. Even if it might lead to other problems in the long run, those are decisions that people who think they would never do that, if they were in that situation, they would do exactly that, because that is a logical thing to do in that circumstance. And so homelessness can lead to unhealthy drug use or a bad relationship with things. And of course, prohibition itself makes it very hard to have a healthy relationship with the substance. Drinking opium tea, sure, there's some issues there, but it's a lot easier to drink opium tea in a responsible way and to live your life and have a family. Trying to use injectable fentanyl or fentanyl responsibly is just a lot harder because of the way it's dosed, because of the way it comes, the way to use it. It's harder to like modulate and titrate your dose and to use a little bit when you need it. And so, having access to the milder forms of these things really lets people be safer, more responsible users. Of course, prohibition doesn't get rid of the harder forms; it only gets rid of the safer forms.
Right.
Yeah,
What country is it that they actually allow addiction to, like, where they give it to them? Is that Sweden?
No, Sweden's actually got some quite strict laws. If a cop in Sweden thinks you're high, they can force you to take a drug test, and if you fail it, they'll charge you for possession.
Well, yeah, but isn't there somewhere over in that part of the world
Portugal's known for having pretty drug laws.
Okay,
Poland also has that. Portugal, sometimes people go too far in Portugal and that they don't, like, it's all legal in Portugal. Well, no, it's not all legal. No. Possession is decriminalized of small amounts. In Mexico, also, possession of very small amounts is decriminalized. You're allowed to have a little bit of cocaine or a little bit. They're pretty low limits, right? Better than nothing, but really they're more for the tourists than that, right? Sometimes you do like you have a 2-day supply, and so the typical user uses this much per day, and so a 2-day is this and that, and it's better than nothing, but it could be a ways to go. But in Portugal, they don't charge people, but they do still have, like, you would have to go to a board of addiction and see whether you're addicted or not, and whether you need like some help, which may or may not be voluntary. And so it's better, but it's not ideal, I think, as it could be. Other European countries, some of them, like England, used to provide heroin to people. Holland has a program like that. People often say, I don't want people to get free drugs. I don't get free alcohol. Where's my free weed? How come they get free heroin? And it's like, you don't actually have to. Some people need free stuff, but most people are happy to pay. They're paying a lot now for their drugs, and legal drugs can be way cheaper.
Methadone's not free.
You just go through a lot of money every day. They go through a lot of money, right? And they could easily, if you charge them,
even methadone's
what
not
the program that costs? Charge them a few dollars. What their dose? I don't want taxpayers necessarily buying you heroin. Maybe sometimes if you need it, but like, people are happy to pay for it, but make the cost reasonable based on just what it costs. Heroin is dirt cheap. Like, aside from prohibition, heroin costs very little, pennies per dose. You could make it available to those who need it at cost. Taxpayers, but of course the same thing. Those folks are like, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to heroin, but they're usually very happy to have a lot more taxpayer dollars going to police and courts and punishments for those people, which costs way more.
Hospitals.
Why do you have to put them in? Why do you have to punish people when they just want something? And heroin by itself is not particularly harmful. I would say that legal opiates are better for your health than legal alcohol is. That alcohol in legal quantities can cause more addiction and more risk and more harm than opiates in a regulated system can. Obviously, unregulated fentanyl is really dangerous compared to regulated alcohol. But in a system where there was rules around both, I think alcohol is more intrinsically risky and potentially more intrinsically dependency causing than opiates are. Certainly, they're in the same range as each other, right? And so the one is so demonized and the one is so accepted, but it's really very arbitrary how that goes.
Yeah, it's really funny how they just like allow alcohol to just keep, you can do anything with alcohol, like your superpowers are with alcohol. But again, I was going to say methadone's not free either. Even with my daughter, it's still $25 for every dose that she's got to take in Alberta.
So
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, methadone definitely helps some people. I'm not a huge fan of methadone. I think other things should be available. If it helps someone, it should be for them. I'm not telling anybody to stop using methadone or whatever. Some people get a lot of benefits from it, but also it's partly because it's one of the only legal things they'll give you, and so that having that option, right? But methadone seems like it's sort of designed to like take all the fun and pleasure out of taking an opiate and just getting rid of your withdrawal symptoms and that. And I mean that, like, why can't something be enjoyable? I don't really, it's like it doesn't seem right to me. But certainly people can benefit. I think all options should be available. And you can see prohibition happening in real time over the last 20 years or so. In the early 2000s, there was a opium use of Dota, right? Dota's like opium tea, where you take the stalks and the dried poppies. It's not very strong. Yeah, you can drink too much Dota tea and have problems, but it's pretty safe to drink that, certainly compared to like injecting or smoking things, right? And in the Southeast Asian community, in the Vancouver, Lower Mainland area, Dota tea was apparently quite prevalent. And there was a crackdown over a couple of years. You could see in the paper, they raided a big opium poppy field in Delta. They caught this guy in his truck coming in. Here's a politician saying that Dota is really bad and we got to get rid of it. And they really cracked down on opium tea in the Southeast Asian community, in the Lower Mainland and in BC. Flash forward 8 years ahead, headlines: heroin, big problem in Southeast Asian community. Talking to people, the guy's like, I'm a truck driver. I used to drink Dota tea. And I had my family and I had my life and it was fine. And it helped me get to sleep and it helped the pain from my job. They took that away from me. Now I'm injecting heroin and I'm worried I'm going to get fentanyl. My family's all fucked up and I'm spending way more money than I used to. And it's harder for me to control my dosage. And like, I don't know what's going to happen now. And that's like in our lifetimes. Mostly prohibition is so long ago. We didn't really see the transition from opium den to fentanyl happen. It took a century to have that happen. But you can see, like, in this 10-year period, crack down on the safer form. Maybe there's some issues around Dota tea. Those issues are pretty minor and can be dealt with in a much easier fashion. Now we got rid of Dota tea. Now these folks are on heroin and fentanyl, and they're dying of overdoses, and their lives are much worsely affected, and their families and children are affected. And what did that accomplish? Why don't we let them have their Dota tea? So I would like to see, Dota tea is not going to cover it for everybody. Some people need something stronger, but I think a lot of people would tend, just like people tend towards microdoses and CBD, I think people would naturally tend towards smoking opium tea, things like that, if those options were available. But they're not. The options are fentanyl or methadone or maybe like Suboxone or something if you're lucky to get that kind of supply. Yeah. And the other options aren't available though.
Yeah, no, that's the truth. That's the truth. That's Suboxone's another, one. And actually, it's funny that you're talking about the opium teas, because Loretta was bringing that up a few weeks ago on Canada Quebec Connection too. Is how better it would be if we had the opioids in a tea form, microdose, to help with this stuff. Go ahead, Al. Sorry, I cut you off.
Break time. Dana, when we get back from break, I want to hear more about your dispensary, your mushroom dispensary, and the Coca Cafe.
Sounds good.
All righty. All right. We'll be back shortly after the break. We'll continue our conversation with Dana Larsen. You're watching or listening to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here on our social media.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
Growing your own vegetables, flowers, or even medicinal plants can be a challenge without the right equipment and proper know-how. At BMA Hydroponics, not only are they your urban horticultural experts and suppliers, but their staff holds the customer's needs paramount to making a sale. Family-owned with decades of experience and knowledge, they offer free advice in person, by phone, or email. BMA Hydroponics wants to ensure you have the advice you need, which is why you'll find tips and tricks on different ways to grow, like wick, ebb and flow, drip, or aeroponic system, as well as other helpful links at bmahydroponics.com. If you can't find what you're looking for, just let them know, and they'll do everything they can to get what you're looking for. At BMA Hydroponics, each staff member also possesses a federal exemptee MMAR license, making their strong suit empathy, experience, and dedication to their customers. Because when you know how to grow, you'll have results that make you proud. BMA Hydroponics in Belleville, Ontario. Visit bmahydroponics.com.
Let's share PACE everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more. We've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
PACE Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
CP operates a medicinal cannabis signing clinic. If you want to grow your own medicinal cannabis and are located anywhere in Canada, then I'd like to suggest that you give them a call. They can be reached at 1-613-967-9888. That's 1-613-967-9888, and grow on with CP.
A doctor's job is to relieve your pains. And when it comes to growing cannabis, the biggest pain is trimming. Let Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions take the pain away. Whether you're a home grower or commercial operation, we have the cure. From 4 plants to 400 plants, garden size doesn't matter. Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions comes to you with years of experience and professional discreet service. It's simple. We trim your weed and we do a damn good job. Visit drbuckcts.com to book your trimming.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Hey, we're back, and thanks for tuning into the program. Tonight, Tamara and I, there's Tamara on that side, joined by our guest, Dana Larsen. We've been talking about several things today, drug-related, testing and everything. One thing that we haven't talked too much about, Dana, is your dispensary, as well as the Coca Cafe. So can you fill us in on the dispensary and how's things going there and how's that all work?
Well, we've really got a revolutionary thing going on here at the Coca Leaf Cafe and Medicinal Mushroom Dispensary. There's nothing else like this in the world, actually. We sell different kinds of psychedelic mushrooms, or psilocybin mushrooms here, of course, microdoses and mushrooms and chocolates and dried mushrooms, but we go a lot beyond that as well. We sell LSD microdoses here too, in the bottle, in the liquid form. You can take the dropper. We sell kratom, which is a really incredible herb many people haven't heard about. It's a tree that grows in Southeast Asia. The leaves of this tree have opiate-like properties, and it's a very beneficial for those who are looking to reduce or eliminate opiate use. They can substitute kratom instead, Kratom. It's really interesting. It's really a whole show in itself.
And it's all natural.
It's a natural herb. It's a ground up leaf. It's a green powder. It comes in several different varieties, kind of like cannabis does, different strains, but it's got really opiate-like properties, but a lot safer to use than most opiates and can be a really great substitute for people. We also sell coca plants and coca tea, and coca, of course, is the leaf that cocaine is made out of, but this leaf has been chewed and used as tea for thousands of years by indigenous people across South America. It's a very beneficial leaf. Very high in a lot of nutrients, and also the alkaloids that provide stimulation. They increase your oxygen flow and oxygen uptake, so it's very useful for things like exercising and also altitude sickness. It's commonly used for areas like Bolivia, which are like La Paz, which is very, very high altitude, and the air is very thin. And when you chew coca leaf or drink coca tea, it allows your body to process oxygen much more efficiently and eliminates those kind of bad feelings you can get from altitude sickness. So we provide that as well as a chew, and and for those who are using cocaine and looking for a substitute, chewing coca leaf can provide that. When you chew a big wad of coca leaf, you get kind of a numbness in your cheek, and the alkaloids are absorbed into your body. People have been using it like this, like I said, for a very long time. It's got a lot of spiritual, religious, and cultural relevancy. Coca leaves do, and we're the only place, I think, in the Northern Hemisphere, really probably the only place in the world where you can come in and buy a live coca plant and bring it home. Even in places like Colombia and Peru and Bolivia, where coca grows openly, they don't really sell it in a shop as a house plant, right? So we're actually the only place doing that. And there's nowhere else on earth where you can get mushrooms, kratom, LSD, coca tea, and whatever other medicinal type herbs and things we sell, all in one spot, all available like that. So I'm really proud of this place and what we've put together here. And it's an act of civil disobedience. We do have a business license, but we didn't tell them we're going to be selling mushrooms when we got the business license. We kind of brought that in afterwards. But we will have some challenges with the city, I think. But we're willing to withstand those challenges and to fight the good fight. And we are definitely helping people to have safe supply. Safe supply is more than just opiates. That's a key one, but we need safe supply of cannabis, safe supply of mushrooms, safe supply of cocaine and coca leaf and all these things, right? So
it almost, some of that almost, when you started talking about the advantage of the coca leaf, it almost sounded as if it was could be used as a harm reduction method.
Yeah,
absolutely. You know, there are people, I have anecdotal evidence from people I've talked to and who use it. And also there was one study done as well that people that are using cocaine can often, if they're seeking to reduce their use or they're having issues with using cocaine in moderation, that chewing coca leaf can provide a good substitute. And certainly if you're looking, you know, it's a nice substitute compared to caffeine as well. I used to drink a lot of coffee and had stomach issues and had kind of a coffee addiction or a coffee dependency for a while. And I find drinking coca tea is much easier on my stomach. Doesn't provide the jittery kind of effect you get from caffeine. It's a smoother kind of effect. I find it helps me work, helps me do the things I have to do. So I enjoy chewing coca leaf and drinking coca tea and making that available to more people. And in our cafe, we sell sandwiches and croissants and snacks and things. We also sell microdose shooters. So if you want to try LSD or mushrooms or one of our other products, we can give you a little shooter. It's basically a distilled water with a microdose of that substance in it. So you can have like a single dose and try it out. Also something I don't think anybody else in the world is doing this. Certainly not like above ground with their name on it in a storefront. It's for somebody's, you know, giving people LSD and drops or whatever, but not like how we're doing it. So to me, this is really, I'm really proud that we brought all this stuff together. Coca especially is very challenging. You know, mushrooms are local. Kratom, you can kind of bring into the country. Coca leaf is I spent many months, like over the course of a few years, down in Colombia and Peru and Bolivia. I've been to Ecuador also more than one time, most of these places, meeting activists, meeting growers, meeting the indigenous people. You know, I want to be able to represent the coca plant and the coca leaf well and effectively to Canadians and teach people about how beneficial this leaf is and about the history and the culture, and to make sure that I'm representing it positively. And the people that I met were all very excited to hear that there was going to be coca leaf coming to Canada. They would love nothing more than to see this plant legalized in Canada, for Canada to stand up for Bolivia in the UN when these things come up. You know, there was a vote a few years ago. Bolivia was trying to get coca leaf removed from the UN treaties and treated separately from cocaine. And Canada is one of the countries that voted against that. And they were like, can you get Canada to change their vote on that? And I'm like, well, I'll try, you know, no guarantees, but we're going to work on this and try to teach Canadians about coca leaf. And so, because it's really a wonderful plant and it's got just as much, you know, sometimes cannabis, I mean, I love cannabis more than anybody, right? But sometimes cannabis users are like, well, cannabis is good, but those other drugs, they're all bad. And if everyone would just smoke more weed, we wouldn't need to have any cocaine and heroin. And well, there's a certain truth to that, and that cannabis can help people sometimes get off other things. But at the same time, coca leaf has got just as much, if not more, cultural relevance, spirituality, you know, indigenous connections and meaning to it as cannabis does. And so I want to explain to people why it's also important, why it's got a lot of beneficial uses. Chewing cannabis leaf helps to regulate your insulin in your body. It helps with digestive issues and stomach issues. It helps your body to process things more efficiently. It's got a lot of medicinal benefits that are only really beginning to be explored, in the same way that people didn't realize all the great things about cannabis. It took quite a while. People like smoking cannabis because it made them feel good. Maybe it's good for AIDS patients or maybe something, but now we're starting to realize, oh man, this has got a wide range of incredible benefits across. I think that coca, different kind of benefits. I think that coca leaf, we're seeing a similar thing. It actually has a lot of real powerful benefits to human health, and really should be explored more. And so that's what we're doing here and having this available. We're online at cocaleafcafe.com. COCA is how you spell coca. People often think it's chocolate or something, coca or whatever, right? But it's like Coca-Cola, COCA. And I won't get into it now, but actually the history of Coca-Cola and coca leaf is really interesting.
Just a second, Dana.
Yeah, cocaleafcafe.com is where you can find us.
Dana, just a second. JR is asking for an address.
Yeah, it's at, what's our address? 651 East Hastings is our address. Do I have that right now? Hang on, I guess I'm going to have to get my own address. But yeah, 651 East Hastings in Vancouver. And you can definitely come by in person, but we do mail order. We don't do mail order of all of our stuff, but we do mail order of coca leaf products, coca chew. Those kind of things are available by mail order. And we also have we have coca cultural stuff and books and things about coca and that kind of stuff available too. But if you're in Vancouver, come on by. We're open 7 days a week. We open at 11 every day, and then we're open from till 9 o'clock on weekends and till 7 o'clock on most weeknights. But cocaleafcafe.com is a place to look and check us out. We have a lot of great links there too with information about coca leaf and the history of coca culture and a lot of really fascinating stuff. So
I think that's the thing. I think people stigmatize themselves so much because of crack cocaine and what the 80s and everybody, you know, with the stigmatization about crack and, you know, and then, you know, with the meth and everything else, I think cocaine's been really stigmatized about, and people forget about the medicinal part of, and never mind, coca leaf isn't processed. It's not the same as cocaine. It's absolutely not the same.
In fact, the coca leaf doesn't actually contain cocaine, oddly enough. Cocaine contains alkaloids that are very similar to cocaine, and a whole bunch of them. It's like cannabis has things like THC plus a whole bunch of other cannabinoids. And when the process of extracting it makes cocaine is created in that process, but cocaine itself is not in the leaf, but it does have a lot of alkaloids that are very similar to cocaine and have similar numbing.
I think a real good example would be probably yourself right now. We've been talking to you for over an hour and 20 minutes. And I believe you've probably been chewing on some coca leaf during the broadcast.
I haven't chewed too much during the broadcast because I find I want to speak clearly. And if I got a big wad of coca in my cheek, maybe I'm a bit harder to understand sometimes. But
I see you put something in your mouth every once in a while.
Well, I just got a little cut in my lip or whatever, so just touching my lip there a little bit, I guess.
Okay.
But I do the coca leaf. I can show you. Hang on a second. I'll show you what the leaf looks like. It really looks like a bay leaf. The coca leaf looks a lot like a bay leaf, so it's a very simple leaf, no serrations or anything on it. Here, I can just show you. This would be sort of a 1-chew. This little bag right here.
Oh, it looks like a bay leaf.
The leaves in there like that. So it's just they call it a quid or whatever would be the amount you take. And I can just take one of the leaves out, and you can just see what the leaf looks like there, right? Just a basic leaf.
You see them on the ground around here all the time, but they're not cool.
Yeah. And all you do when you chew it is you don't even have to, but I'll tear out the stalk part because the stalk part can be a little bit, you get a lot of stalk in your teeth. It's kind of unpleasant, right? So you take the leaf, you kind of take the package out, I put it down, I pull out like on this, I just take out the stalk like that. So I get a little bit of the stalk. I take those little pieces off. So you don't have to, but it's a bit more pleasant to take off the stalk bits. And then you just put it in your cheek, and then you can add something alkaline. You don't really chew it. That's kind of a misnomer. You sort of suck it in your cheek, kind of squeeze it with your teeth. You make it a kind of a pulpy mass with your spit and kind of this ball in your cheek. It's what they call it, a quid or a bolo sometimes. And then you want to add something alkaline to that, which activates the alkaloids. In South America, in some regions, they will use crushed seashells. In other areas, they will use like quinoa ash, which is very alkaline. You can also use baking soda, which works very well as an option too. They call it a complement, and in some areas they will sell like flavored complements. So it'll have like quinoa ash mixed into like a little block with some rose in it or some other flavor in it to make it taste a little better, right? The leaves don't taste great. They don't taste bad either. They just taste very green, you know, like chewing on grass or something, right? So you get the leaves, you kind of collect it all up. I got my leaves in my hand here, not a very good camera. There you go. Just kind of that much. Yeah. I think this is 2 grams or something we sell, the basic amount. You kind of crunch it up a little bit. Stick it in your cheek, like that. There's sculptures that are like thousands of years old of Incans and Peruvians sitting there with a big bulging teeth on one side, right? So, I mean, we've been chewing this for a very, very long time. You can make the tea out of it as well. When you chew it, you get a faster effect because it goes right into your bloodstream from your cheek, and your cheek will go numb when you add the alkaline to it. When you drink it, You make a little tingling on your lips from the numbness, but it takes a bit longer. It's got to go through your digestive system, a little bit slower to come on, but you get a nice effect from drinking it as well. We make our tea pretty strong too, so it's got a nice effect.
So somebody can come right into the store and purchase a tea already ready to go.
Well, we have the teas are ready to go. You can also buy the powder to take home. We sell just coca leaf powder, plus we sell coca leaf powder with a bit of baking soda, a little bit of a mixture, like a pre-blend or whatever, for you just to take it home. You'd use between 1 teaspoon and 1 tablespoon per cup. So like a mild cup of coca tea, 1 teaspoon. You want it stronger, 3 teaspoons, 1 tablespoon. You can make it stronger if you want, but that's usually the range people typically would take it in, right? Like 1 to 2 tea bags in a cup of tea or something, right? This is a very nice, soothing, but energizing effect.
I'm assuming you just drink it straight up. I guess in tea world you call it black.
Well, we actually offer some stuff to it. You can drink it straight, but we offer different stuff. We have cold coca tea. We make a sparkling coca drink or sparkling coca soda. We use Perrier, coca tea, and then a bit of syrup for flavoring. That's really nice and refreshing. We make a cocacino, like a cappuccino, but with coca. So a cocacino, that's hot coca tea with steamed milk, steamed oat milk, or steamed cow milk, or whatever kind of milk you want. And then you don't have to have flavoring, but if you want flavor in there, cinnamon sprinkles on the top and some chocolate pumps or whatever, we can do a coca mocha or things like that. We can combine coca and espresso. So you want a coca loco drink? That's where we have coca tea, and then we put a couple of shots of espresso in it. Kind of like the classic Coca-Cola, which was a caffeine ingredient and a coca ingredient, right? So we can actually do a Coca-Cola, where we use coca tea and we mix it with Coca-Cola. We call it a Coca-Cola, and that's like a nice combination, And so we have all the different options, but you can definitely drink it straight or just a little bit of sweetening if you want. Drink it straight. It's not delicious straight, but it's not bad. It's like drinking black tea, basically, right? So you can enjoy it straight, but most people prefer to have a bit of sweetener in it or a bit of something in it. But at home, I often mix it with Perrier, but don't put any syrup in. I just half Perrier or 2/3 Perrier, 1/3 coca tea. It gives you that little sparkle on your tongue and makes it taste nice, and that's fine. I don't really always like the syrup, right? But we try to sort of Starbucksify the coca tea, right? So we offer it in some different forms. And
that makes it interesting too.
Cinnamon sprinkles and vanilla. We got a whole bunch of different syrups here. We can do all different flavors if you want. A lot of folks just want it straight, especially the first time. They just want to try it on its own, and then they're like, oh, well, maybe I'll try it with some caramel syrup and some frothed oat milk and a little bit of cinnamon sprinkle, and that's great too, right? So
I gotta believe that the people who come into your business come from all walks of life.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just gonna add a little baking soda. I've got my cow brand baking soda, my little stick, and I just stick a little bit of baking soda on the stick. And I just put it like that on top of the leaf and kind of chew it in, and I can feel the numbness starting to happen almost instantly. In parts of South America, different areas have different traditions, but they use something called a poporo. And the poporo, some of these are they've been found that are thousands of years old. You can make it out of a gourd. You can make it out of solid gold if you want. And there's all kinds, but it's basically a tube or a gourd, and they put seashells in the bottom of it, and they have a stick, and they use the stick to crush the shells and make that powder complement. And it's kind of a sexual metaphor, this stick, this phallic stick going into this opening, kind of thrusting. So it's sort of seen as a phallic kind of a metaphor. And in the one culture that I spent some time with, the only ones who chew coca are men who are married. And when you're going to get married, your mother gives you your poporo and explains how to use it. And so it's sort of this, it's not like directly sexual, but it's sort of like now you're going to be having sex, you're married, here's your poporo, your mother tells you how to use it, this sexual kind of thing. They say touching a man's poporo is like touching his wife. And it's a thing you put in your mouth, so it's kind of, it's like a thing you're sticking in your mouth and sticking in there, so it's a very personal kind of a thing. And they'll rub the stick on the edge of the gourd, and the crushed seashell residue will stick on the side of the gourd, and over time it creates a big, thick calcium ring that's like an inch thick and maybe an inch wide, and eventually that gets too big, and then they don't use it anymore, or they'll put it in the market and sell it to a tourist then, with this big thing of kind of gross, spit, cement, seashell ring around it, but they do. It's your own thing, so it's okay. It's your own stuff. It's your own spit. You've been using it, but it's not something you share with other people, right? Everyone's got their own. And in that group also, we were really lucky enough on one trip in Colombia to spend some time with an indigenous community that is not normally very welcoming to tourists or to white people. But they are very into coca. They wear these white robes that they make themselves, and you see them in town. They really stand out with these beautiful white robes they wear. And they what was I going to say? Only the men could do it. Oh yeah, but they all carry a little pouch with coca leaves on them, and when men greet each other, they will share some coca leaves. So you see the market. We're sitting watching the market, and all the morning, everyone's, "Hey, Bill, how you doing?" And they'll give some coca leaves, and he'll give them some coca leaves, and they put them back in their pouch, and they're all constantly trading coca leaves with each other. They're all pretty much the same. There are different varieties of leaves, but it's more. I think it's a cultural way, partly making sure everybody's got some coca leaves. If you don't got some, here, have a couple. And like pot smokers, we meet up. What do you got? Well, I got this. Well, you got that. Well, I'll smoke some of your weed. You smoke some of my weed, right? I mean, that's a tradition among people. And so, but you see them doing this, and it's very much like, you see how tied it is into their culture. Women also do chew coca. It depends on the area. And in Bolivia, if you go to the coca market in Bolivia, in La Paz, there's only a few coca markets in the world, and like 2 of them are in Bolivia. And they if you grow coca legally, you got to bring it to the market. Then they certify it and stamp it. Okay, now this is legal. Now you can bring it back home and sell it as coca leaf for people to chew. And in the market, there's all these women, and they have these huge. They'll have a big thing, a big basket of coca leaves, like a huge thing, big bag, and they'll be sitting there. Hey, and you can come and try different ones and buy what you want. If you want to get a big bulk thing, you go there and you buy it. And that's all women. And it wasn't when I was there, but the Bolivian government, they allow a certain amount of coca to be grown in certain areas, and who gets those licenses and how much they're allowed to grow. Just like weed in Canada, it's very controversial, right? And there's a lot of, you're giving that guy a license because of corruption. And there was like a riot at the coca market where the woman coca sellers were like standing off against cops with riot gear. Cops are throwing a tear gas and they're kicking it back, and like that level of conflict. And eventually it all figured out, but they were upset that they weren't getting the licenses and someone else was getting the license, and they thought it wasn't fair. And I don't know enough to know who's right and who's wrong or whatever, but it's interesting that in some areas only the men chew coca. In other areas, the women are the ones selling the coca, and they're very tied into it. It's a big continent, and so there's a lot of different coca traditions in different areas and different regions.
Wow,
absolutely.
Who knew? Yeah, that's quite the.
I've learned a lot about it in the last couple of years. Really, it's been a journey of understanding and appreciation. I'll tell you one more coca story.
All right.
I'll need a break or something, but there's a predominant legend about coca, the origins of coca, which seems to cross a lot of different cultures down there. And the details of the story kind of vary, but there's a woman who's a goddess or a prostitute or maybe a prostitute goddess or whatever, but she's very sexual, and she is kind of causing chaos in society because of her wanton sexuality that cannot be controlled. And so she's going around fucking everybody and causing problems in the social order, right? And so the chiefs are like, well, let's send someone to go kill her. But they send someone, but no, she just seduces them and has sex with them, and she cannot be defeated. But finally, they manage to capture her, and they kill her, and they chop her body up into pieces. And they spread those pieces around, and where they put them, where her body was, that's where the coca plant grows. And the coca plant is like the body of this goddess of sexuality. And what you make of that story, I mean, I'm not an expert on the history, but to me it feels like there was a time when the women were chewing coca more, and it kind of got moved away from that. And in some areas now it's only a men's thing, but it's still got the sexual kind of connotation to it. I'm not sure. That's an interesting story, and there's different variations on it, but that basic theme that there's a very sexual woman, and when they killed her and put her body, that's where the coca plant grows. And it's to like teach men about that, or to have this connection, or to, that we draw the energy into us when we chew the coca leaf. So and that's a story we heard many different places. The Coca Museum in Bolivia and the Coca Museum in Cusco, Peru, they both talk about this story, and it feels like it's like a deep part of that culture. There's always different versions of it, but that's the origin story of coca. It comes out of the body of this goddess, and what that means, I'm not sure, but I find it fascinating.
It all has to start somewhere.
Right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah. That's quite the story. For sure.
And coca plants will live for like 50 years, and they'll grow bigger than you are. They'll grow into a tree. Like cannabis is a tree in that sense. Coca, in fact, the word coca means the tree. Like we call cannabis, the tree of life. If we're
Tree of
getting
life, yeah.
stuff, right? And the word coca comes from the one group. It means not tree. It means the tree, like the primordial tree. That's what the word coca means. Cocoa, or whatever was the original word, and so it means the tree because for them, coca is the tree of life. Just like for some of us, cannabis is maybe the tree of life in our own way. For those cultures, coca is the tree of life. And they didn't have horses in South America. They didn't have any pack animals. They got llamas. Llamas can carry a few things, but they're not as effective. You cannot ride a llama. So they had to walk everywhere. And so the Incan Empire was held together by coca leaf. That when they travel a distance to go bring a message from the king to some other place, they measure that distance and how many coca chews it will take to get there. So that's a long walk. That's 7 coca chews. And each one, a coca chew is sort of a measure of distance, but also a measure of time. Going uphill versus going downhill, it'll be a different distance, right? But it's a distance of how far a person can travel on one big coca chew. And after that distance, there'll be a little break spot, a rest stop, where there'll be coca leaves and stuff for the messenger to like restock on their coca and have a drink of water. And then, okay, I'm off to the next rest stop, another couple hours of hiking, right? And the foot walking on foot was how they traveled and how they did stuff. They did not have pack animals, and they're in an environment that's very mountainous, and so it's hard to make roads, and it's not an easy flat terrain, very mountainous, very high altitude.
And the coca leaf would help them through there.
Yeah, distance helped them hike, helps them walk faster. They're also got thighs and calves of steel, obviously, but the coca leaf, that's how you measure distance, that's how you traveled. And the Incan Empire, they tried to control coca leaf, and only certain people. I don't think they were that effective because coca could grow quite openly, but if somebody was being celebrated or made a noble, the emperor would give them a whole bunch of coca leaves and reward them. And now you're an important person. Here's a lot of coca leaf, and you can control it. And you're allowed to sell it. Just like with weed, you got to be an insider to get that permit. It was like that in the Incan Empire too, right? The only ones able to grow coca and commercially were those that were in the inner circle or were nobles or whatever. And when the Spanish came and took over South America, at first they tried to ban coca leaf. Oh, these guys are all devil worshippers and coca's part of their devil stuff. We're going to ban that. But when they started having the Incans working in their mines, silver mines, they realized they need coca leaf to work harder. So then the Spanish monopolized it. The Spanish were growing coca themselves and selling it to these, not really slaves, but essentially enslaved, but they were being paid, but they're mainly being paid in coca leaf, right? So this weird situation where the Spanish then monopolized the trade. And some of the bishops were like, this is not right. We're making all this money off this thing, but the church supported it because it was very profitable. So you see that effort. We can't ban it. Let's monopolize it instead. And that's something that happens throughout history. It has kind of happened with cannabis to a certain extent here as well. So these parallels are really fascinating.
Oh, yes. Yeah, for sure. There's no doubt about that. I'm sure we could talk for hours. Like you've got, there's a lot of knowledge in there. And history is coming out. I've
been studying the coca leaf a lot, and there's a lot. I mean, there's more. I'm not going to get into everything I've learned, but there's a lot of information, and it's really fascinating, the history of it and how Coca-Cola ties into this as well, and the treaties and the benefits of coca leaf, and it's a lot. It's really fascinating. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll have to have you back on the show again.
Yeah, sounds good. I won't see you next time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, let's do the shout out then. Websites, all that stuff, including where people can find your books. Like we never even got to your books.
So I've written a few. I've written Harry Potter and the Marijuana Stone. I've written a fun Dr. Seuss parody called Green Buds and Hash, which is probably my bestseller. Incredible artwork. I don't make the artwork, but it's really a beautiful book. If you like Dr. Seuss, you'll enjoy this stuff as well. I wrote a history of cannabis in Canada, and I got a fun one called The Pie-Eyed Piper. I got an unreleased book a novel that I finished and haven't published yet, called The Hashtastic Voyages of Sinbad the Strain Hunter. And that's hopefully coming out this year. But my books are all at potheadbooks.com. You can check them out there. My own website is danalarsen.com. My last name is larsen.com. Cocaleafcafe.com. Mushroomdispensary.com is our mushroom dispensary. Cannabisdispensary.ca is our cannabis dispensary. GetYourDrugsTested.com is our Get Your Drugs Tested program. I'm probably missing something in there, but that's the bulk of it. And if you go to my personal website, all my stuff's on there.
Wow.
You're not doing Overgrow Canada. You don't have the Overgrow Cannabis site.
You know, I don't. The website's still there. I think the website's still up, but I don't. I gave away 10 million seeds over 4 years. That was a huge logistical challenge, you know. And I'm just getting people that much stuff in the mail. The first year we did that campaign, the person who I was going to print out the labels for us, we used a database called Nation Builder, keep track of everybody. They print out the labels. They made a very simple mistake. They didn't click the button to include the suite or apartment number in the label. So we get all these labels coming in, and so we had thousands of letters returned to us because we didn't put the suite number or apartment number on them. It was a nightmare. We had like all these letters coming back. We had to relabel them, reship them out. We didn't make that mistake again, but that was a nightmare. But yeah, I don't do the Overgrow anymore. The website's still there. I think there's still pictures of cannabis plants, but I might give away some seeds for 420 this year. But we did 10 million seeds, and I feel that's enough.
That's phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Exactly. That's lots of seeds.
Every time I spent a night in jail, but that's a whole other story. The night in jail.
Yeah.
In Calgary, I wasn't there. I wasn't there that time.
That's a whole other show.
Yeah.
That's right. All right, Tamara.
I'm just thankful that Dana came on and gave us a whole hour and a half of his time and gave us a lot of great information. And I don't know, we got this radio station and we've got everybody that we like on it, so that's good.
I'm gonna just remind everybody that tomorrow, Reefer Reporters, Glenn and I, will be Glenn's second show on the network. He's coming back to give her another shot there in the Reporters tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. Other than that, thank you go to our sponsors, the friendly and helpful folks at legacy420.com, bmahydroponics.com, drbuckcts.com. And thank you to you, Dana, coming on to the show here tonight and talking to us, like Tamara said, for an hour and a half.
I had a great time.
I had a great time as well.
The fourth one today. I've been talking nonstop all day, but this was the most fun one, I think, right here.
Excellent. We'll have to have you talk again, right?
And because you were late coming on, I didn't get to tell you to hang on when we can say goodbye to everybody, so we can say goodbye to you after we get off the air.
Sounds good.
All righty. Other than that, Tamara, thank you.
See you next week. Yeah, you bet.
And
it'll be another busy week.
Yes, another busy week. There's no doubt about that. And get out of my way here, screen. Other than that, we'll talk to you later. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.